expert, Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Well, you gotta love technology. We do have a little bit of technical difficulties every once in a while, but we persevere anyway. You are listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. Gotta love all of this good stuff, but welcome to the show. This is the show with no real boundaries as we discuss current events, financial markets, politics, sports, even poking fun at the rest of the media. We connect the dots so you know the actions you can take, how your family or business can benefit from current events. Most of all, thank you for joining me. Before we get into our intriguing content today, please join me in welcoming our featured guest patiently in the bullpen right here. Lynda Eisenmann is with us. Good morning.
Thank you, Ron. Good to be with you.
Glad to have you with us. Let me remind you, if you ever have any home or finance-related questions, I am the consumer advocate looking out for you. And you can reach out to me directly, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. Just remember, that's the number you call anytime for assistance. When you call that number, it comes directly to me first. There are no operators standing by. I am it.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
While I do have a great team when it comes to developing a financing plan or plan to save you money, I personally work with you. Even if you don't have any needs today, save this number in your phone for future reference. 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Celebrating today, National Swap Ideas Day. On days when we have technical difficulties, you don't want to swap ideas. Probably not a good idea. But it is also National Ants on a Log Day today. I don't know about that one. National TV Dinner Day. Hey, Pat, glad to see you. We are checking in a little bit late today. Chad, good morning. Glad to see you with us as well. Let's check the markets. It has been a volatile session this morning, especially if you are in the mortgage market. Been up, down, all around. Dow Jones, those down 29 points. S&P down 11. NASDAQ down 38. Oil down 27 cents per barrel. And the U.S. 10-year Treasury, that's been as low as 162.5, as high as 167.5. Right now we're up to 182, 168.2. Still significantly better than our competitors around the world. How about this one? I know that we've been watching a lot on the jobs reports and the new jobs out there. Came out with a JOLT report. That's a job openings report. I saw that one came out this morning. That's 7.3 million jobs is on the JOLT report today. 7.2 million job openings. That's more job openings than there are people out there looking for jobs. That's good news for the economy. That should give us an increase, other than in Calizuela, that should give us an increase in wages. Calizuela doing everything we can to ship out every possible good job. Have you followed what's going on with Uber and Lyft now? Looks like we're going to be looking at higher prices in Calizuela for Uber and Lyft. A lot of us use that on a regular basis, but they want to make all of the drivers W-2 employees. Ooh. So think about that. You want to just go and work for an hour or two or whatever? You don't get to do that in Calizuela anymore. Or if this law passes, which is expected to pass. So now we've got an assault on homeowners, we've got an assault on investors, we've got an assault on Uber drivers. I wonder who's next in the state of confusion. We're going to continue moving right along, looking at the reports this morning. I did notice, and I don't know if they're doing it in California because probably not a good idea to want to hire anybody in Calizuela, but UPS, 100,000 job openings. There's a lot of reports out there. If you go through just some of the companies that are looking to hire, and again, like I say, I don't know how many of them are looking here in Calizuela, but a lot of companies looking to hire around the country. The smart ones are doing it just on the other side of the border. Oh, I know who the new assault is. How about if you are a college... Ooh, I got sounds coming in my ears. What about college students? That's the newest one that Calizuela is going against, right? So college athletes. So if you want to go and play sports at a college, that's the latest. Calizuela, they're going to make the colleges pay, but you can only do that in Calizuela, right? So now what is the NC2A saying? Well, if you're a athlete at a Calazuela school, you cannot play for a national championship. That's going to be the newest because it's an unfair advantage. Calazuela is going to be paying people to come to their schools. So unfair advantage to the rest of the country. So the NC2A says, well, you're not going to let them play in the national championships of any of the sports. Continue doing what you're doing, Governor. You're really helping us out a lot. Moving right along, what else are we seeing? Unbelievable, all of these things. SB 206, that is the NC2A battle. And, you got people that don't understand these things. LeBron James, the players should be paid. Well, I'm not saying whether the players should be paid or not. They do generate a lot of money for the schools. But here's the issue. You can't do it just in one state and then not get the NC2A on the same side of the package. Senate approved the bill 31-5, so it's going to probably go through if the legislation reaches the governor's desk. He'll have 30 days to sign it or veto it if you take no action. The bill becomes a law. That's just so he can cover himself by doing exactly what he... Well, actually, I guess if he did nothing, it would probably be better for us than the things that he does do. Unbelievable where we're heading. Numbers out for the newest, the best schools. How about this one? Most expensive college in the country. Harvey Mudd, $75,000 a year. University of Chicago, $74,500. Columbia, $74,000. Barnard College, $72,000. Scripps, $72,000. Columbia, $71,700. Trinity, $71,600. Holy cow! You got to go down to University of Southern California because you just bribe somebody to get in there. $71,620 at the University of Southern California. I'm just looking down the list. Claremont McKenna, $71,000. I would highly recommend if you have a college-age student, well, you might want to talk to our friend Chris Bissonette. Get your assets in order so that you can get as much in the way of public funding as possible. And that is even if you are in the higher net worth categories. Throw that out there for you. I'm going to do an abbreviated monologue this morning so we can get our conversation with Lynda Eisenmann. You are listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and financial markets. What happens once your property goes into contract? We're going to talk to Lynda about that today. We'll also chat a little bit about what should my mortgage credit score be, the role Access plays in getting your house sold, all that and more. You can reach me anytime. Our off-air number, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com. Connect with us, Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio, on Twitter @Ron Siegel. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Are you earning a safe, secure 10+% return on your investments? Is your credit score over 800? Are you living in the home of your dreams or simply where you think you can afford? If the answer to any of these questions is no, what are you doing about it? Text ATP to 79564. Complete a 3-minute complimentary survey and the area trusted professionals of Ron Siegel Radio will reach out to you to develop a success strategy for you. Again, all you need to do is text ATP to 79564.
Did you know that banks and credit bureaus are rewarded financially if you have bad credit? And the worse your credit score is, the more money they can make off of you? How does that make you feel, knowing that banks are getting rich off of your hard-earned money? How does it make you feel, knowing that if a bank or a credit bureau makes a mistake on your credit report, they benefit from it and it hurts you? The Fair Credit Report Act of 1971 requires banks and credit bureaus to report only accurate information, and nearly 100% of all credit reports are inaccurate. If you're sick and tired of being broke and tired of being robbed by the banks, you owe it to yourself and to your family to call Rondi. Rondi is a FICO-certified credit professional and has helped thousands of people just like you get out of debt and establish great credit. Rondi's number is 855-608-1990. Again, that's 855-608-1990. or visit creditsanitizer.com. Again, that website is creditsanitizer.com.
Are you a veteran, own a home, and need money? The Siegel Lending Team is here to help veterans refinance and get the money they need. The VA 100 lets you borrow up to 100% of your home's value, refinance your mortgages, consolidate credit cards, and lower your payments by an average of $700 a month. And the Siegel Lending Team knows that character means more than a credit score. Call 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-1990. Rate subject to change without notice. Licensed by the California Department of Corporations, NMLS 21037, and DRE number 018694452.
Are you a veteran, police officer?
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message. I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The Mortgage Minute today being brought to you by our friends at Gold Star Mortgage. When you're ready for that next mortgage, hey, any kind of a mortgage, even if you have no income, it's available now. Not a problem. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 15 points. NASDAQ down 16 points. S&P 500 down 14 points. The 10-year Treasury, holy cow, a lot of red on the screen today. The 10-year Treasury, the yield is up to 1.68. The mortgage-backed securities, that's been a roller coaster today. They're down 19 right now, which means interest rates are up. They were down 25 at one point. They came all the way back. Now they're back down to down 19. What is going on? Well, I tell you all the time, that's what we're here for, not to give you the information that you get from Google.com, but it's the information that they don't tell you. Well, the mortgage bonds, 10-year treasuries breaking through. On the other side, we talked yesterday about that double level of resistance. Well, they've broken through that right now, so that's why we are seeing the bonds moving the way they're moving. The National Federation of Independent Businesses released their optimism index for July, showing that optimism levels among small businesses decreased from 104.7 to 103.1, lower than estimates of 103.5. Now, here's the dichotomy of that one, and this is, again, things that you're not going to find in the mainstream media because they're busy reporting on fake stories out of Russia and the CIA and all that kind of stuff. But here's the issue. In the jobs report, this last jobs report, did you hear anywhere other than Ron Siegel Radio that there were 590,000 new jobs created by small business? No one's talking about the new jobs that small business is creating. They're talking about, they've got the new jobs here, that the number was lower. 590,000 new jobs from small business. That's an amazing number. Also looking out at numbers that came out this morning, we're talking about a potential recession. Now, I've been telling you about the recession of 2020. I know it's not here yet, but the recession of 2020 will not be a real estate recession, but another indicator to substantiate what we've been showing. Another leading indicator is people going into higher levels of debt. Yeah, we're seeing people take on more debt. Generally, that's pulling forward expenditures. Why would somebody go into debt? Well, it's because you need or want something today that you can't afford, so you're buying it today. It would be something you might need or want to buy later on, but you're bringing it forward to today, not going to buy it later on. So that's just another one of those issues. CoreLogic, they released their loan performance report for the month of June, showing that loans 30 days or more past due increased from 3.6 to 4%, while seriously delinquent loans, which is defined as 90 days or more, remained unchanged at 1.3%. Seriously delinquent homes in foreclosure, unchanged at 0.4%. Okay, so here's the issue. Why would we see the 30-day loans going up? Why would it increase from 3.6 to 4%? Well, we don't have exact science on this one. But there are many, many people who are refinancing their homes. When they go through a refinance, they say, well, something, I'm refinancing, I'm going to close on the 20th of the month, my mortgage is due on the 15th of the month, I think I'll just let it be taken care of through escrow. Well, that becomes a delinquency. Might be part of the reason, so just watch out for that, see if that's not part of the issue. That is the Mortgage Minute, brought to you by our friends at Gold Star Mortgage. Give me a call, 800-306-1990. We will talk to you about the idea of how do you get that loan for a home. Generally, it's going to be, we're going to talk in depth about this tomorrow. Investors that want to buy a house and don't have the income to support it. Rental properties, they're going to be the ones right there. We'll talk about it. Again, that's from our friends at Gold Star Mortgage. So let's chat this morning. Lynda Eisenmann is in the house. What happens once that real estate, we talked to Lynda a lot about the real estate contract and understanding that contract and how few people do. Lynda, since you were in last time, I've been paying a little bit more attention to messages that I get from the local real estate association.
Yes.
And I've noticed more and more there's extended sessions on understanding the contract.
Oh, without a doubt.
I never had a clue how much time they spend on that.
You know, and I've said this before, that it's really the foundation of the entire transaction. The way that contract is drafted and agreed upon between the buyer and the seller. So it's our guideline throughout the transaction, basically.
Yeah, and you know, some of the sessions I've seen over there are like 3 days long.
They can be. I took one at CAR that was a trainer course for the contract
California Association of Realtors.
Yes, I'm sorry, I should have explained that. And that's actually when the contract first came out. This particular version of it came out. The one that became what's called an active version. So nevertheless, yes, it can be very complex.
So figure if it takes somebody like you who's been doing this a while and seen all the iterations. Of course, it may be more, I don't know, maybe the person has no clue, doesn't have to look as hard as you do to find out what the changes are. Right? I mean, because you know the whole contract, and it's, 15 pages long or something like that?
Yeah, it is.
So to try and find out where they changed a word or paragraph or two.
Right.
You know, someone like me that, I just look at 3 different lines is all I care about in the whole contract.
Well, one good thing is our California Association of Realtors does give us an updated, basically a primer of what's been changed.
Okay.
And usually in the beginning of the year, whenever the changes do take place. So we're informed if agents bother to read that information. It's one thing about sending the information out, but getting people to follow it and understand it is another situation, just like everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you hear people come back and say, well, I didn't know. Well, I wonder why you didn't know.
That happens.
Right? It's because you didn't pay attention to the updates. We just had one of the people from the local board in with us in a meeting, and they're talking about this new rent control and how much it's going to hurt the renters in the community. And people aren't talking about the idea of how much it's going to hurt, as it already has in the model cities in Oregon. Mm-hmm. Right? And he said, well, the problem is that the realtors who should be out there talking about this to the consumer base ignore the messages that come out from the boards.
Well, I can tell you, as soon as I received the email on that particular issue, my very next phone call was to my local congressman about that very same thing. My local assemblyman, my personal representative.
Well, and we all need to do that. If you think it's going to help you as a renter, just think about this. It's going to increase your rent every single year, probably by more than you're seeing as increases right now. Just throwing that out there. But our topic this morning, we wanted to chat about what happens once we go into contract. Lynda, you and I have talked many times that we really don't need, the realtors can help us with finding properties, but Google helps with that, and all these other searches help with finding the property.
They do.
The big benefit is what happens afterward.
Well, you're right. The role of the realtor has really changed, because at one time, and this is even pre-internet, and yes, some of us did sell real estate before the internet even existed, consumers had to go to a realtor to almost find the property. And today, I find that most of my home buyers find the property first and then contact me afterwards.
So and all of that is, that's well and good, because we want people to be more educated.
Oh, absolutely.
The problem is Google doesn't ever say whether it's the correct education or incorrect education.
Well, that's always a matter of opinion.
Right?
Yes.
Right, yeah, and it becomes very challenging, because I hear people all the time calling me and telling me, well, the guidelines say this, and well, that might have been 10 or 15 years ago, but not quite
Even 6 months ago.
Right.
That's how quickly things can change.
Absolutely. So you really need to have somebody that's on top of it.
Right.
So what are some of the first things we need to be looking at once we've gone into contract?
Well, it depends upon if you're a buyer or seller, because there's two different sides.
Okay.
And if I'm representing the seller, one of the things I try to do in advance is to have the seller prepare what's called the seller's property disclosures. And we have a myriad of them in California. And by having those disclosures done in advance, it really saves a lot of time in the very beginning of your transaction. And those property disclosures, some of them are mandated by law, some of them are optional. So it's important, number one, to understand which is which and receive those as quickly as possible. Because if you're a home seller, your buyer actually has rescission periods based on providing some of those disclosures to them.
Do those disclosures change based on the contract?
They do.
So you can't really do them before the contract starts?
No, I'm sorry. No, the disclosures change every now and then, usually by statute, if the law changes or something like that. Or maybe the California Association of Realtors comes up with a new improved disclosure on something. They can change them. But do they normally change while you're in escrow? No. Do they normally change after the contract is written? No. Now, I will tell you, though, at one time when we were in a down market many years ago, when we were in a short sale market and we were in a market where sometimes properties were listed 2 or 3 times before they sold. And at that point, you could have a property who literally has been on the market for maybe even up to a year before that property had an accepted offer. In that case, in my opinion, if those disclosures are longer than 6 months, they should be updated.
Interesting. Okay, so am I right in saying that in a market like we're in right now, and I think the only area that I just saw one of the latest things, 81 days is what the average house is on the market in California. I think I saw that this morning. As soon as I sign the listing agreement, can't I start working on those?
Absolutely. I think that's the best time for the seller to do them ahead of time. Because when the offer comes in, you mentioned how long the offer itself was. When that offer comes in, at that point, there's so many other things to sign that I believe it's a good idea to have them ahead of time. And there's times that I even have them on my open house. If I'm representing a broker, I'll have copies of several different things that are important. One of them is a seller's property questionnaire. That's information that the seller knows about the property and the way they're representing it to their future buyer or their buyer. One of the other mandated required, though, is the transfer disclosure statement. And that particular disclosure statement, that is so important that a buyer literally has 3 days in which to rescind their offer should they see something on that transfer disclosure statement that was unknown or I don't want to say misrepresented, but just something that wasn't known. If there's a fact, if there's a defect that's disclosed on that transfer disclosure statement and the buyer finds out about it, the buyer has a 3-day rescission period from the time that transfer disclosure statement is presented to them. And that's California law.
Interesting. Okay. And now I was just at an open house, actually it was a broker open house last week.
Okay.
And at the same time that they were doing the broker open house, the property hadn't even hit the MLS yet, but it was hitting that day, the termite inspection was being done.
Good idea.
Is that a good idea?
Absolutely.
Okay. And who pays for that?
Well, the inspection is normally paid for in advance by the seller.
Okay.
And otherwise, it's contractual depending upon who's going to pay for. If the seller doesn't have it already, if the buyer asks the seller to provide one, then the seller pays for it.
Okay, so that's another good story that we can just kind of help the process along if you're in place.
And if you're a home seller, why wouldn't you want to know ahead of time what the cost would be to provide a termite clearance, should you need one?
It's funny that you say that because I hadn't thought of it that way, but you know, if I've owned my house for 20 years, the likelihood is it's going to have some termite work that's going to need to be done.
In California, most likely.
Right? So if I really am looking at what my real net proceeds are, that's going to be an important piece of an expense.
It could be. There are times it can be a local treatment, and if it's a local treatment, it's usually not that costly. But what if you have to do a fumigation?
Right.
If you have to tint your home, you could be looking at several $1,000s very, very easily.
And we don't like surprises.
You're right. You're right.
And something that's kind of ironic. The other one part of it, I don't know if you and I have talked about it, but our friend John Hammond Home Inspections, we're working on a program for a certified pre-owned home. And I know there's some legal issues that he's got to deal with on his end, but going through and having a full home inspection prior to the sale.
Not a bad idea.
Right, again, it's just to know what might come up. Is it material? Is it not material? And you can even say to the sellers or to the buyers, here's the inspection I had. And I still think that the buyers should get their own.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Okay, so you agree with that?
We've had times where we've had 3 inspections on one property. We've had a situation to where maybe somebody was in escrow, the sale fell through, the buyer already had completed their physical inspection, their physical property inspection. And because we have that, because that is a report we have on that property, we have the obligation of providing it to the next buyer. And that's for informational purposes. It's not for the buyer to use that report. That buyer still needs to get their own independent inspector out there and know the qualifications of the inspector they hire.
Now, you made a comment there that I want to go back to a little bit. You have an obligation to provide that to the next buyer?
The seller is to provide all inspections and reports to buyers, yes.
Now, what if he doesn't get a copy of it?
Well, then he doesn't have to provide it if he doesn't have it.
So he can disclose that, hey, there was one done, but it was done by a prior buyer.
Yes, but it's unlikely that the seller would not have a copy of it, quite frankly.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just didn't know because sometimes, I don't think that we don't provide the seller a copy of the appraisal. Now, the agents could or the buyers could provide that to the seller. But it's the seller, being that the buyer is paying for it.
Yes.
It's their report to do with as they wish.
Yes.
So that's why I was wondering on the home inspection, though, it may not necessarily be that way.
Well, if a buyer has provided the seller with a home inspection, the seller is obligated to provide it to number 2 buyer or number 3 buyer.
Interesting. Okay.
If it's been provided.
Interesting. Okay, so, and you know something, it's one of those things that everything comes out in the wash, so don't lie about it, right? If you've been given a copy of it, make sure you just forward it. It's not, if you have a competent set of inspectors, they should be able to find the same things.
And most of them do.
Right.
But what's interesting is you can read an inspector's report and then you can read another inspector's report, and sometimes their explanation or their comment on the same issue can be a little different, and it could be even interpreted a little differently.
And that makes sense to me because sometimes sometimes buyers are using that report as a negotiating tool as opposed to an information tool.
Well, it is.
Right,
You're right.
So you might be getting different information, and then it becomes obviously that's again where a great realtor comes into play, is because they're understanding that, and that's who's going to be doing the negotiations for you. We're going to talk more with Lynda Eisenmann when we come back. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. What happens once you're in contract? The role Access plays in getting your house sold. What should my mortgage credit score be? All that and more. You can reach me anytime. Off air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com. Connect with us. Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. On Twitter @Ron Siegel. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Siegel Lending Team offers you buying power. Let's say you can afford a monthly mortgage payment, including principal and interest, of around $1,900. With today's rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage of 3.75%, APR 3.85%, that payment could support a $416,000 mortgage. But if you wait and rates tick up to around 6.5%, which is roughly the average home mortgage rate over the past 30 years, that same $1,900 mortgage payment, including principal and interest, may only be able to support a $314,000 mortgage. That's over $100,000 worth of home you're missing out on by waiting. That's buying power. All you need to do to get started is reach out to the Siegel Lending Team at 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-1990. Or visit SiegelLendingTeam.com. That's SIEGEL LendingTeam.com. Payment example excludes taxes and insurance. Call us for full details. 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-1990 or SiegelLendingTeam.com. Equal housing lender. Licensed under NMLS number 217037.
Are you purchasing or own a luxury home? If you're like so many others, your home is your largest asset and the mortgage is your largest debt. The Siegel Lending Team has some amazing financing opportunities right now. Jumbo loans up to $2 million, 30-year rates below 4%, 15-year rates near 3.5%, and if you can believe it, 7-year interest-only hybrids in low 3s. The Siegel Lending Team has all the options for your jumbo or second home loan requirements. Take advantage of them while you can. To learn more about all the other financing products available from the Siegel Lending Team, call 1-800-306-1990. That's 1-800-306-1990. Or visit SiegelLendingTeam.com. That's SIEGEL LendingTeam.com. Again, call 1-800-306-1990. Rates subject to change without notice. Licensed by NMLS ID 217037 and 145502. Equal Housing Lender.
Homeowners that are 62 and older are about to find out a great way to live a better retirement. It's called a reverse mortgage, and SLT can help you learn more. Call the Siegel Lending Team at 800-306-1990 right now to receive your free booklet with no obligation. It answers questions like how a reverse mortgage works, how much you qualify for, the ways to receive your money, and more. When you call the experts at Siegel Lending Team today, you'll learn the benefits of a government-insured reverse mortgage, how it will eliminate your monthly mortgage payments, and give you tax-free cash from the equity in your home. Here's the best part. You still own your home. Now is the best time to take control of your retirement. Call 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-1990 to get your free brochure. Call today or visit our website at SiegelLendingTeam.com. That's SIEGEL LendingTeam.com. Or simply call 800-306-1990.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message. I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The real-time real estate segment today being brought to you by the area trusted real estate professionals of Ron Siegel Radio. Text NEST, N-E-S-T, to 79564. Find your dream home before someone else does. If you already found your dream home, then it's very simple. Text SLT Home Digest to 79564. SLT Home Digest, no spaces, to 79564. Find out what the county recorder knows about your property and what the market says about your property. Both reports are free. All you have to do is just hit the texting and take care of it all on your own. The role Access plays in getting your house sold. So you've decided to sell your house, hired a real estate professional to help you with the entire process, been asked what level of access you want to provide to potential buyers. There are 4 elements to a quality listing. At the top of the list is access, followed by condition, financing, and price. There are many levels of access you can provide to your agent to be able to show your home. Here are 5 levels of access you can provide to a buyer. And I'm going to give you a real brief description, but we're not going to talk too much about it so we can get back to talking to Lynda Eisenmann. Lockbox on the door, that's pretty obvious. Providing a key to the home, although the buyer's agent may need to stop by an office to pick up the key. There's little delay in being able to show the home. Open access with a phone call. The seller allows showing with just a phone call's notice. By appointment only. I'm going to tell you what I think of by appointment only. Limited access. The home is only available on the 4th Wednesday of the month, maybe the 5th Wednesday of the month from 2 to 5 in the morning, right? Think it's going to really sell? Someone's going to pay you $500,000 or more for something they can't see? Unless it's significantly distressed and it's $1 million home for the $500,000. Or Lynda, I don't know if you saw that estate that went to sale with the founder of Herbalife. It was 100 acres property in Bel Air. They sold it for $100,000.
No, when was this?
It was just about a month or so ago.
Oh my gosh, how did I miss that?
It was crazy, but those things. I mean, I would be willing to pay $100,000 for 100 acres in Bel Air with a 30,000-foot house. I don't have to see it. I'll write the check for it tomorrow. Not a problem. Maybe I'll even write the check today. But that is the real-time real estate segment. Back to our conversation. We're chatting with Lynda Eisenmann. What happens after the contract is signed? That is our subject today. Lynda and I were talking during the break about about honesty, right? And there are people in every industry that make industries look good, and people in every industry that make them look bad. And the fact of the matter is everything comes out in the wash.
It does.
Right? I mean, I've had people tell me that, well, and I could get it in the lending world, where I have people that don't put on their loan application the asset of owning a piece of property. Because they don't realize that if it's free and clear, there's still liability to it because you've got taxes and insurance and whatnot, homeowners association. But it still comes out when you do the different LexisNexis and reports like that, still tell the investors that it's there. But you can't hide a home inspection, a termite report. Those things don't work.
It's a big mistake.
Right.
And that's one thing you and I were talking about during the break, is I had a situation actually a little over a year ago, a local home here in Orange County, where there was a pest control report that was completely hidden. And we had conflicting pest control reports. One said one thing, the other one said something else. So we did not know, though, there was actually a third. My buyers, fortunately, we requested our own report. So we had 2 out of 3 say one thing, but we found out during the process that there was one that was hidden. Interesting.
And the concept here, most people don't realize this part of it, is when you're doing the pest inspection, it's probably one of the cheapest inspections there is.
Well, it is. The problem wasn't the inspection, the problem was the results.
Right.
And when we had conflicting results in the first 2, we thought the first 2. Turns out 2 out of 3 basically said the same thing, but we were only provided 2.
Yeah, you gotta, and that's against the rules.
We found out about it.
So again, another area where professional guidance, that's where, and you and I have talked about this because it's easy to find a house, right? We spoke about this in the first segment also.
That's the easy part.
Right, but understanding, now, had I heard that that was provided, there were 2 reports, I would have said, okay, 2 reports, no big deal. Right, now there's a third report. As a layperson, even though I am licensed and I don't use it, I wouldn't have known what the remedy would be for something like that. I mean, I know that it's fraud, that somebody is hiding what they know, especially in this day and age where you have to disclose everything as a seller.
Yes, you do.
Right, but if they don't disclose that, they can say, well, the first guy was wrong, here's another report, it contradicts it. But the fact of the matter there is, a realtor that has experience understands that, hey, now whose liability is this?
Well, in this case, we wound up with 4 reports on that property, and 3 out of 4 said the property needed to be fumigated.
Wow. Now, is there, what do you find in your experience? I know it's not scientific, but what does your experience tell you? Property is 5 years old, 10 years old. Is there any consistency where they're going to need to be fumigated?
I think if it's new, the newer it is, the less likely it is, but it also depends upon how a home has been maintained. It depends upon the landscaping around a home. So there's a lot of different factors. So just because a home is newer, I wouldn't necessarily assume that it doesn't need it, but it's not as likely.
And is the pest report, is that a cause of termination of the contract?
Well, it's usually subject to the buyer's approval of the pest report, yes.
Okay, so I've talked on the broadcast many times that there's probably 35 or 40 different clauses in the contract that the agents can use to extricate a buyer from the contract.
If they do it at the right period of time within the contract, yes.
Okay, so it's just a matter again of knowing the contract.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, so you've got to. You would think that the associations would have that as part of their continuing education.
They do teach it. California's contract is an active contract.
What does that mean, active contract?
Active means it is riddled, it's built in with contingencies, and those contingencies usually is a period of time in which to provide information to the home buyer. And the home buyer usually signs off of those contingencies as they satisfy each one. An appraisal could be in a contingency, for example.
Okay.
The physical inspection is a contingency. If there's association documents, those are also contingencies of the agreement. And those all need to be signed off as you go throughout the contract. And that's what I mean by an active contract. They're not waived after a period of time. They don't sunset like they did in the old California Association of Realtors contract. The contract we've had for quite a few years now, has been an active contract where the buyer signs off the contingencies normally as they go.
So is there, as a representing a seller then on the seller side, are you constantly sending out a message, hey, this is the date of this?
Yes.
So that's the seller's responsibility.
Yeah, and it's actually spelled out in the contract.
Okay, so anybody can see it.
Yeah.
And all these things have to be done, being that it's a contract. it's all got to be in writing.
That's why it's such a somewhat complex contract.
Yeah,
It's an active contract. There's a lot you've got to do to actually perform.
Now, what happens if I decide to sell on my own? Do I have to follow the same rules?
Well, you're probably not using that contract. So when it comes to the contract, not necessarily, but as a seller, you still have the same. Any homeowner has almost any homeowner. There's a few of them a few exemptions, and the exemption would be if it's a probate sale or a trust sale, something like that. They do not have the same duty to disclose, because if you inherit a property, you may not necessarily know the same things that the homeowner knew at the time. So that's the reason that I believe the duties are lessened on somebody who is selling through a probate or a trust.
Interesting, because I did go through that last year, where I was selling some properties through as a successor trustee.
Right.
And they're asking me all these questions about the property, and I wasn't involved in it.
There are times a seller's trustee has never even seen a property. I mean, that's a possibility. You could have an out-of-state successor trustee who inherited a property from maybe a great aunt in California.
And it could be a fiduciary handling it too, couldn't it?
It could be. There are some, not that many, but yes, there are some.
Interesting. So there's a lot of reasons why you may not. And then in that case, I would highly think, and again, I'm just a radio guy, my thought is you want to make sure you've got a really, really in-depth home inspection.
Absolutely. All the more reason.
Right? And now, does everything that's in the home inspection, is it you had said that one report was one way and another report that you saw was another way on various properties. Do I have to address every item that's in that home inspection?
No, not at all. It's up to the buyer.
Okay, so I could go and say, something, I want this property, I understand it, I'm accepting.
Yes.
And that's
and it happens a lot. Usually it's a compromise. Usually a buyer will make some requested repairs, the seller will go along with some of them, but maybe not all of them. And that's okay too, as long as everybody's in agreement. And it's about making informed decisions.
I like that terminology, right? It's an informed decision. So you know what you're buying. You could be buying a house that needs a lot of work.
And that's fine,
right?
As long as you know ahead of time,
right? As long as you know what you're buying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's so. From a buyer's standpoint, what are some of the things I know? We spent a lot of time on the seller's side. What do we really need as a buyer? We need to certainly get that home.
The inspection, and then also read through all of the seller's disclosures. There's going to be pages and pages of seller's disclosures. The seller property questionnaire that I mentioned,
right?
And that typically will show if there's been any new painting, any improvements, things like that.
New painting?
Well, yeah, no, I didn't say nude. Did I say nude painting?
No, new. I said new. Oh. New painting.
Well, one of the questions is how long has it been since the property's been painted?
Oh, okay. So what is that going to? What am I looking to glean from something like that?
Well, maybe somebody painted over a water stain somewhere.
Okay. I get you. Okay, so that's why I want to pay attention to that.
The seller property questionnaire will basically address areas of the home that have had painting and approximately how long ago it was.
Okay.
And then and that's an optional disclosure. Most of us do use it. It's not required, but the one that is mandated by the state is called the seller's. It's a transfer disclosure statement, and it's what the seller knows about the property and the way they're representing it to their buyer. And we've had that one around for decades.
Really?
Decades, yes. TDS is what we refer to it.
TDS, okay.
TDS,
so
transfer disclosure statement.
So make sure you read those. Is there a standard as far as an amount of time to review that?
Well, hopefully you're going to get them in advance. When I say in advance, I mean within the first 5 days, and that's one of the reasons. If you're the seller, you want to have those all filled out in advance, because there are so many things to sign once an offer comes in. Why not do the disclosures in advance?
And you've chatted with me before that we can also be looking at the contract. We can review a blank contract,
sure.
a template. Sure. As a buyer or seller in advance, right? So those can certainly be done. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And actually, I do that. I'll take a sample contract, and I will take my yellow highlighter when I'm sitting down with sellers, and I'll say, now, if you're a seller, this is normally what you're looking at. You're looking at the price.
Right.
And how long is my escrow going to be? And I take a different color highlighter and I look at all of the things that I'm looking at on the contract as their representative. I'm looking at how much is that earnest money deposit. I'm looking at how soon they're going to get their inspection done. I'm going to look at just all of those different things in the contract itself.
And you and I have talked about at least half a dozen of them this morning. about the
Yes.
different items that are going to be reviewed.
Yes.
And now, am I the only one reviewing them, or are you looking at them and giving me guidance on them?
Well, we're talking about it, we're discussing it because it's,
Okay.
it's part of your decision.
Right. Okay. So because I'm the ignorant one, right? I can count on my realtor, if they're experienced, to go through some of these items and say, we need to really focus here. This is more important. This is less important.
I think that's part of an agent's duty.
Okay. So, because we don't know what we don't know, right? I mean, like I said to you, I didn't know what I'm going to glean from painting,
Oh,
right? So, and obviously, you're right, 100%. A water stain. If you just painted over a water stain on the roof or on the wall, right? You may not have fixed the cause, but I can't tell if there's a problem there because you painted it.
well, and that's another one of the questions on the SPQ, Seller Property Questionnaire, whether or not there's been any insurance claims.
Okay. Now, and I don't know whether you do this part of it or not, but I do know some agents, they go out there and they will pay for a clue report, right? So they're looking for the report directly from insurance to see if there's been the clue report is basically an insurance claims report. I don't know what
That's correct.
clue stands for, but the acronym.
I think we looked it up once, casualty loss,
Right.
underwriting evaluation. I don't know,
Something along those lines. But it basically tells us if there's been any kind of insurance claims on the property.
Yes, but the seller is the one who has to order that.
Seller has to order
Seller
it.
has to order it. So
Okay.
if a buyer wants one, they have to request the seller order it.
So that would be something I would be requesting in my purchase contract.
In your purchase contract, or it could be part of what's called your request for repairs. If you see something that you're uncertain about that shows up in the inspection report, as part of your request for repair, you can ask for a seller to provide a clue report at that time.
Well, that's fascinating that the seller has to has to order it.
Yes.
When, as the buyer, I'm going to have to go and get insurance, and my insurance agent is going to be looking at it to give me the insurance binder.
Well,
That's part of quoting me.
Well, it does have to come from the seller. Usually,
Interesting.
It's the seller's insurance agent that usually provides it.
Fascinating.
So, yeah.
And it's cheap. From what I understand, it's like $20 or
It's
something like
20,
that.
25, something like
Yeah,
that.
very, very
$30
minimal.
at the most, yes.
But it gives you some more information about the property. Just some great information. Sorry about all that technical problems as we got started this morning. But as always, I ask you, set that first radio preset button to come back here and join Ron Siegel Radio, where we only speak about items affecting your house and your bank account. Thanks to all of our sponsors. A big thanks to John, who's engineering us today. And of course, a special thanks to you for spending a little bit of your day with us. That's all for Ron Siegel Radio. Again, if you have any questions or to meet any of our guests, call me anytime, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. And remember, make a lot of money so you can help a lot of people and have a lot of fun. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time on Ron Siegel Radio.